to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am comedian Nazareth, and thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, just want to thank you for downloading this podcast and listening to us and making us on the top. I didn't check lately, but we used to be number 56 on stand up comedy. Now, I don't know where we at, but thank you guys for really putting us up there in that. Uh, okay. Well, I uh, I have a guest with me, a friend of mine, a friend that I've known for years and years, and she's right now she's in New York, but she let me officially introduce her. She's a comedian, she's a filmmaker, and she's an awesome mom. That's awesome has the three words that you wrote. But Jennifer Rowling, she's an award-winning writer, performer, filmmaker. She's grew up in Salina, Kansas, before moving
It's
to
Salina, Kansas. I just have to
Salina. I'm
correct
sorry, you gotta
Salina.
correct me. I'm not from around here. It's
Mhm.
Salina, Texas.
Well, then you're gonna
Kansas.
have to get back in the truck right now. All right.
This is you're the first one in 84 shows that when I introduce you, you heckle the bio, your own bio. You're heckling your own bio. Okay, before moving to LA, Jennifer is a proud mother of five children. Jennifer is a winner of both the SCBWI Karen Cushman Award and the SCBWI-LA Sue Alexander Grant winner for her novel Empty. You may have seen Jennifer on Comedy Central, CMT, PBS, VH1, A&E, CNN, Home, HLN, Current, Joe Bear, the film I Am Battle comic, or streaming one of her three TEDx talks. She's a favorite at festivals, including the prestigious Humor for Peace Festival and Carnegie Hall's Voices of Hope. That's just recent. Jennifer is a beloved keynote speaker at events across around the globe and is known for her wit and inspiration. Using her humor as a way to tackle serious subject matters, she was named as one of the 21st changemakers of the 21st century by Women's E News. So, for decades, Jennifer has left her family to entertain the troops. She had performed in over 350 military shows in dozens of countries, including Iraq, Afghanistan, Haiti, and Bosnia. Alrighty, it was during these trips to war zones that Jennifer added the title documentary filmmaker to her list of jobs. And Jennifer's Power uh, directorial debut, Forgotten Voices Women in Bosnia, received critical acclaim and screened at film festivals worldwide. Several universities, including Harvard and UCLA, where my daughter goes, has included Forgotten Voices Women in Bosnia as part of their curriculum. Traveling to war zones and directing Forgotten Voices prompted her award winning solo show, I Only Smoke in War Zones. Jennifer, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's
Hey,
great to see you.
man. It's oh gosh, I'm so happy to see you. It's great. First of all, congratulations on this program, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be number one today for comedy podcast. So
Yes,
I'm
of
just
course.
putting that out there. Nazman is number one.
Thank you. It's good to see you. You're in New York today.
I am.
You live in LA, but you're in New York, always traveling.
You
Uh,
know, my kids, because of COVID, even though they're grown, have been moving back with me. So I'm just trying to find a place where they don't show up on my doorstep and I don't have to cook them dinner tonight. So,
that's funny.
but
So,
I think they know the address.
that's good. You know, it's funny. We've known each other for, I'm thinking, since 1990 or before. How did you start your comedy career?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, I was going to be I was a biology major and I thought that I was going to be a pediatrician. And then I saw stand-up comedy for the first time at this club in New York called Who's on First.
Uh-huh.
And I remember sitting there in the audience and thinking, I could do this. And so since I thought I could do it and I did stand up exactly once, I thought, well, I'm ready to move to LA. So I moved to LA, didn't know anybody. And my very first night in Los Angeles, I went to the Improv. And that's when Bud Friedman still was the owner with his monocle. And I went up to Bud and I said, hi, I'm Jennifer Stewart. That's my maiden name. And I said, I'm a comedian and I want to perform here. And he said, oh, you have to come back on, I think it was Sunday
Open
night at
mic
the
night.
time. You have to sign up and all this kind of stuff. And I looked at him and I said, well, why can't I just go on now? And he let me go on now. And so I don't think I really had any jokes, but I probably had some stage presence. So when I walked off stage, I said, you don't have to give me the best spots. I just want to work. And he said, okay, call in on Friday with your availabilities. And I became a paid regular my second time doing stand-up.
Oh Lord, that's unheard of.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
Now,
unheard
it
of.
was a different world then. And everybody had, first of all, I was a young woman then. And everybody had an opinion about how a woman should dress and, what you were supposed to look like if you were a comic, because back then it was not okay to, it was very discriminatory against women.
I
And in
agree.
fact, early on, I was invited to host the American Comedy Festival in Las Vegas. And Wayne Fetterman and I were the two hosts. It was a 3-day festival. And we both hosted all day, the 3 days, and alternated time slots. And that entire 3 days, I was the only woman on that program.
Wow.
And so, which even as a young woman, knowing how blessed I was, I thought it was outrageous. And so, Iris March, who was a manager, and there was a woman who was head of casting at NBC. I actually held a showcase in my hotel room for the other women that came there to perform and didn't get on stage. And so I just stood up in front and we had a showcase.
Oh no! Now let me tell you this, and I have to do it. I'm like your brother and all that. You're very pretty woman
Oh,
doing
thanks, man.
comedy in the early days, like you said, there weren't a lot, and the females that were doing the comedy were mostly like Roseanne and what's her name, Rosie O'Donnell, and people who kind of made fun of their kind of they're being homely, if I lack of a better word. I hope I'm not
It was just a
offending
really
anybody.
harsh time. And I think that women, have always had a difficult time. But I am thankful to the women who went before me because, the generation before me, there were no women on stage. And so, but it was definitely a different world when we met. And so it's good that some things have changed. But I'm glad that some things haven't because it's so good to see you.
Yeah, I know, but it was hard because the comedy is all about putting yourself down and stuff. And when people look at you and they're like, "Okay, well, she got everything, she got it together and all that." But so, when did you feel, okay? I'm gonna move to something else. I'm gonna be a comedian, but I'm gonna do filmmaking and all that. When did that
Well,
start?
so what happened with me is, so I started off as a comic, and I always say that stand-up comedy has informed everything I do. But then I did take a decade off to have my 4 kids. I did some shows in between there, but I, took some time off. And then I restarted again. I used to open for a lot of country acts like Faith Hill and Tim McGraw and Lone Star and stuff because I had to make money. I have all these kids, so I had to like go do a show somewhere. So I think not only so I wouldn't say that I necessarily went away to do something else, but I think that, when you're in your 20s in the clubs, the people in the clubs are in their 20s. And then, when I came back, I would, first of all, I was still young. I was like, I had 3 kids. I had my daughter when I was 24. So anyways, when I came back, I was still young, but I had a whole other different life going on than the people who were doing the 2-drink minimum at the clubs. So I
Right.
had to find places where I could speak to that they were on the same path as I was, and I think one of the things that really changed my entire perspective, not only on my career, but on my life, was going to war zones. Like that was the biggest shift, because, you know, I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo, and when you see what really goes on in the world and the suffering and the poverty and the mass destruction, for me anyway, I couldn't continue as I had before. Like so now I always say that I use humor as a way to talk about other things. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And before I get to that, I know you've been to 63 countries, 350
70.
countries. What? 60 what?
70.
70 now. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading
That's
the wrong
okay.
letter. But when you were having your kids, you know, were you feeling, man, I should be on stage. I should be performing. What am I doing? Just being a mom, supporting my husband. What was it?
Yes, yes, and yes. I mean, I remember the few times I did do stand up when I was pregnant and stuff. I really loved it. But, you know, it's just, yeah, I mean, during COVID, oh my goodness, you're so blessed to have had this podcast, because there were times, and I realize how lucky I am during the pandemic, because, and there's no way this is not, okay, anybody who's texting right now, I know what I'm about to say doesn't sound great, but just let me get to the end of the sentence, okay?
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
am
I have a
profound.
good fan base.
So
They're
before you
very
start sending hate mail,
graceful. No, very graceful.
let me just say, I feel really blessed and lucky. Not only that I didn't lose it. I do know people who passed away from COVID, and I know people who died from it, and I understand the profound loss of not only what we know is the norm of life, of you know, everything that we took for granted, we lost during COVID. And one of the things that made me particularly sad, and this is shallow, I missed being on stage. I'm just gonna say it. I missed it. You know, I really, because I love people, and I love that connection, and I love hugging a stranger, and I love how a conversation can totally shift something in not only in me, but hopefully in others too. And that's really, I miss that connection. And so I understand that that's not the most dramatic thing. And in fact, it's a little thing that happened during COVID, but it's still something I missed.
And yeah, and it's you, and it's something you miss and I miss. And yes, it's okay to do that. We'll help. I know you've done more, helped so many people, more than a lot, you know, most people that I know. So I want to get to that. But your dad was an attorney from
Salina,
Salina,
Kansas.
Salina, Kansas. Was he a Christian? Was he
So
what
I
was
grew
that
up
like?
going to First Christian Church in Salina, Kansas. And one of the things I'm very proud of, actually, and then I went to school at Texas Christian University. One of the things I'm very proud of is that my great-grandfather, who was very active in the church in Seymour, Texas, he actually spoke out against the KKK. He was his name was Demosthenes Franklin Goss, and he was a Texas state senator, and he spoke out against the KKK in 1905. And
Wow.
so I had that kind of grace modeled for me as long as I can remember. So, you know, so my dad was an attorney, but he was also very active in the community theater. In fact, when he passed away, we had his funeral at the theater and we sang show tunes.
Really? And so he was. What kind of? Was he an actor? Doing acting?
He was. He raised the money to build the theater and was very active in it. I think he was in like, I don't know, 70, 80, 100 shows. He was both my parents were very active in the theater. My mom's still with us. I'm actually going to go to Kansas for Mother's Day to see my mom.
You know something that I knew right away about you from knowing you, and also I heard you say this about your dad that he never said anything bad about anybody, and that's
That's
you.
correct. Did
That's
I
you.
tell you that before?
No, I read it somewhere, but
Oh, okay, yeah, I never heard my dad speak negatively about anyone,
and
and
that's you. You're the same way. Even
I
as a
wish
family.
I was. I mean, I try to be, but I mean, I definitely have fallen short of never.
So
But but
so
I try.
you did. That's awesome. Now, what do you call it? What made you go and do military bases? I've done military bases in Germany and all over, but not as much. Not even close to what you did.
Well, okay, so I'm going to be honest again. The very first time I was asked to do a military base, the reason I did it was because it was a gig.
Yeah,
Like
it's money.
the very shallow part of me was like, oh, it's a job. Okay. But after I did it once, that's when it really shifted for me, because you really see, like, first of all, the incredible service that people do. Sorry, my there we go. Okay. The incredible service that people do. And, you can do anything for a short amount of time. And here are these people deployed for a year or 18 months. I can go over there and tell jokes for 2 weeks, you know?
Right.
Now, they are trained in combat. And the first time I was in Iraq, I remember when we landed there. So I flew from LA to DC to London, and we had a 6-hour layover in London. And then we went from London to Kuwait. And then in Kuwait, we did 2 or 3 shows that first night. And then the next night, we flew to Mosul, Iraq. And as we're getting on the plane, the guy tells us what's in his backpack. And he says, and if we're shot down, take what you need, because I'll probably be dead. So we arrive at the base, and we're kind of sleeping, not in a tent, but like in this stackable plastic. It's called a Connex. It's like this. It's like a plastic house, less than a porta potty. The porta potties were outside. And so I'm on a cot, and our military host, issues us a flak vest and a helmet. And he says, now, when you hear bombing go off, you're supposed to go crouch behind this like concrete blocks. And it was 2:00 in the morning, and I'm exhausted because, first of all, you went all the way to the Middle East, and then, 3 shows the first night, and then my favorite part, the meet and greet afterwards. And then we'd already done 2 shows that night in Iraq. And so I'm sitting there with my earplugs, and I'd never heard a bomb before, but the first time you hear it, there's no mistaking. Like, right. It's a bomb. And I kind of wake up, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to go like 12 feet over there and go behind the concrete, but I'm so tired. I just roll over, and I'm like, good night. I try and go back asleep. So that was my very first night in a war zone. And I think that was really a blessing, because then you realize that, like, you're going to be scared, you're going to be rocketed and bombed. But if you can make it, then you really suffer when you get home, because then you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I did all that. So
now, how close were you to death? I mean, were you what's sticks to your mind, the closest you were to where you said,
oh, you mean from birth of my children, or in
no, from the war zone?
Okay. So I was there before the fall of Fallujah the very first time. So that was very, very violent. And it's not an exaggeration to say we were rocketed and mortared every night at every single location we were at. So, I I heard the bombs going off every night, and there was, I remember flying in a helicopter, and we had to go lights out maneuvers to fly because there was insurgents, launching rockets and stuff. So, but I don't want to get into a Brian Williams thing here. I can't say exactly how close. All I know is they were
Oh,
rocketing.
that's funny. I remember. Yeah, he was canceled.
I know. I felt bad for him because yeah, I guarantee you it was very violent, and so perhaps he got the day mixed up.
Now, you went to Bosnia, and remember there was a war in Bosnia, and you went with the American military, right? Or you just went on your own?
So the very first time I went to Bosnia, I went with the military, and do you want to know how I wound up doing this film in Bosnia?
Yes, I want to know about this award-winning Forgotten Voices, Women in
Yeah.
Bosnia.
So listeners, if you would like to watch the movie, you can stream it on Amazon. It's called Forgotten Voices, Women in Bosnia, and it deals with women in the aftermath of war. So how did I end up doing this film? Well, I'm going to tell you, Nazman. This is what happened. So as you know, I have 5 kids, 4 biological and a stepson. Well, I guess I really have 6 kids because I have 4 biological and 2 by marriage, my husband and my stepson. My biological kids, my daughter's name is Courtney, but my 3 boys all have biblical names, Joshua, Noah, and Satan. And
No.
so
The last one is what, Satan?
Satan, yes.
That one, boom, that one.
Okay. So my daughter is in high school at the time, and she is outside swimming. I can't tell part of this on your radio show because it's not dirty, but anyways, I'll just tell you what I can. All right, so my daughter's outside swimming. I get the newspaper, and I'm taking the LA Times outside, and I tell my daughter she needs to get out of the pool and start her homework. And of course, she grumbles about it. And as she's starting her homework, I'm looking at the newspaper, and there's this article about this woman in Darfur, I believe it was.
Darfur or Sudan?
I think it was in Darfur. And the war had been going on there for decades. And she tells the reporter, she says, because there's a picture of her with her child who's starving to death. And she said, if the fighting would end, I could feed my family again. And it's at that moment that I realize that I know something that this woman doesn't. That I know that war continues to destroy lives long after the last bullet is fired. And I start crying just thinking about this. And of course, my daughter, being very concerned about her mother, looks at me and she goes, "What are you crying about, Mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just so sad what goes on in the world and how people suffer." And she's like, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And I'm thinking, what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm going to slap your face, but I can't because I live in California. So I wouldn't do that anyway. I'm just joking. It's just part of a joke.
Funny.
But her question really bothered me because, first of all, I don't want my kids to have the last word. I want to have the last word.
Of course.
So all night long, I'm thinking, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? And because she then continues on, she's like, "We just can't sit around and cry. You have to do something about it." And I don't know. You told me, I don't know about other women out there, possibly men too, but we tell our kids that they can do anything they want in life. But there becomes a point where we quit believing that for ourselves.
Wow.
And
that's deep.
Thank you. And so that I really struggled with that night. And the next morning I woke up and I thought, I know what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to direct a film about women in the aftermath of war. Now, there was only a few problems here. I had never even shot a home movie before. I didn't know anybody I didn't have any skills like in filmmaking, and I didn't have any money. But what I did know was that I wanted to go to Bosnia to do it. And the reason I wanted to go to Bosnia to do it is because of all the anti-Muslim rhetoric. And, you know, Bosnia before the war was a third Catholic, a third Greek Orthodox, and a third Muslim. And, you know, Bosnia is a country in Europe, which most people don't recognize that it's actually just in Europe.
Right.
And I really wanted women to see, like, oh, it doesn't, she's just like me, you know. And I think that that's where a lot of things go missing in the world, is that not just me too, like, there's so many misconceptions about humanity, and so I purposely wanted to do a film that featured Muslim women. And so anyways, back to the story, and then I'll get to the film. Okay, so the next morning I wake up and I think, okay, well, I want to do this film about women in the aftermath of war, but I don't know how to do it, and I have no money. So I call a couple of my friends to let them know that I want to do this. And what's crazy is they both offered to give me funding for the film. And I thought, well, they must have a drug problem I don't know about. I better get these checks in the bank before, you know, before they go to rehab. Because I couldn't understand why they would, you know, finance my film, but they did. And I'm forever grateful to them. So I bought a camera, and, you know, I didn't have money for a crew or anything. And I bought a plane ticket and went to Sarajevo. And I didn't really know anybody, but you know, one person led me to another person. And I made a point to interview women of all religious backgrounds, women of all ages, and women of all socioeconomic status. And, you know what I really discovered, Nazman, after going to war zones for over 20 years, is that poverty is the weapon of mass destruction in the world. Poverty. Like, we often, yes, we have wars and you know, horrific things happen with bombings, but what happens after a war, and with the poverty and the corruption, that is just as brutal as what happens during the war. And to me, from what I've seen, is, yes, poverty is the weapon of mass destruction.
What was the story that stuck to your mind, that, like, the worst story a woman shared with you in Bosnia? The hardest?
Gosh, there's just, well, one of the things was I had set out to make a film about women in the aftermath of war. And one of the women that I met, her name is Nablita, and she, her son was born about the same age as my son, Noah. He was born a few months before the war, and the Dayton Peace Accord was signed, and the war in Bosnia was over. Now, I met her several years after the war, and I go to interview her, and she lives in Mostar, Bosnia, and they have a small restaurant that feeds mostly farmers. And I asked her about during the war, and like every woman, she was telling me what it was like to go without running water or electricity or toothpaste for 4 years. You know, I mean, people would give one another an onion for a birthday gift, and they would eat it for 3 days. And so that, you know, they had no shampoo or soap. And so women, everybody told me about what it was like to do without for 4 years. And then Nablita said she was always waiting for something to drop from the sky. The only man who's in my film is Nablita's son, Tarek, and he translated for me that day. And when he introduced himself and Nablita to the camera, he said, "This is my mom, and I love my mom." And he kissed her on the cheek. And Nablita started talking about her son Immitus who, like my son Noah, he liked Eminem the rapper and video games and, and movies and music. They like the same music. And as we're sitting there talking, I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, we're just two moms talking about our kids.
Mm.
And then she continues on and I say, tell me more about Immitus. And she said, Immitus would come home from school every day and do his homework and his chores right away. And then I thought, oh, nothing like my children. And then she said, and one day he came home and he did his homework right away and was going outside to play with his best friend, a place where they played all the time, a place that on the map was free and clear of landmines and munitions. But the map was wrong.
Ah.
And 9 years after the war in Bosnia had ended, Immitus's best friend bent down to pick up something in the rocks. It was a grenade.
Ah.
And his best friend died immediately. And Nablita looked at me and she said, and my son, my baby, he lost too much blood and died on the way to the hospital. And when she told me that, I asked her if she had any anger towards the people who had left that grenade there 9 years earlier. And she said, I have no space in my heart for hatred.
Wow.
Love and loss of a child. And if there's anyone in this world who can stop these things from happening, please help. And so Nablita's story really stands out to me because, when I had set out to make a film about women in the aftermath of war, I never imagined that I'd be interviewing a woman who lost a child 9 years after the war had ended. So when I say that war continues to destroy lives long after the last bullet is fired, it not only continues to destroy lives, it continues to take lives. So
wow, that's I wish we have people here in this time. Now you write one bad post and people hate you, and now this woman Nablita is going, I don't have room in my heart to hate people. And
right.
I just, so what do you think?
Yeah,
What
and
do
I
you
mean
think
the
is
absolute grace of that, like it could not, I'm not as kind as Nablita. Like that grace of hers and her spirit to be able to see beyond her own circumstances and to see the big picture of healing and what can we do to make this world better and who can stop doing this.
Now, being an American woman there in Bosnia, were you in kind of some kind of like people hated you for that? For being
No,
like
oh
that?
my gosh, no, they definitely love you in Bosnia because they, Madeleine Albright and the Clinton administration were it took a while, but they were very involved in ending the war in Bosnia. And so no, they love Americans there.
Good. No,
And go ahead.
no. You keep talking.
But I don't think, see, this is the thing. I think there are definitely people who are haters, but, even in Iraq and Afghanistan, I would always go out of my way to meet people and to talk to locals and stuff. We're all the same. I mean, we all want, food on the table and a roof over our head. And regardless of, the color of our skin or our faith or, what country the McNally says that we live in, we all still want the same thing. And so that's actually the best thing that I got about going to 70 countries is you realize how incredibly small the world is and how we are just all so connected. But yeah, of course there are, There are the haters, but those are just the little ones, except for on Twitter. I think they all hate.
Now, Jennifer, what is the funny? You've been to 70 countries. What's the funniest thing that happened to you? Maybe embarrassing, funny, crazy?
Oh, golly.
Right.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah. You don't have to stay there. We can move the.
If I think of something, I'll let you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I like trip and put my foot in my mouth all the time. So, I mean, the list of embarrassing things that I have like had to endure at my own hands, like is pretty embarrassing. So I'm
Okay.
gonna have to have a sip of water to talk about that.
You've been to many countries and
Uh-huh.
talked to women. What do you think is the solution? What is your for that
So
poverty?
so that's such a big question. Solution for
Uh,
war, for the
um,
economy,
uh,
for
yeah.
for
For
what?
what do you think? I mean, you're interviewing these women. You're probably looking at you like, how can you guys help, or what can be done?
Okay, I need to rephrase the question again because so like you mean what do I so I mean I think the solution is kind of what I said before, poverty is the weapon of mass destruction, and really what we need to what not we as like Americans, but we as like global citizens
Humans, yeah.
need to do is we need to recognize that like these are our brothers and our sisters, and we need to love on them and truly give somebody a piece of bread when they're hungry, and you know treat people with the kindness that we want to be treated with. I mean, I think it's just like what your grandma used to say: treat others like you want them to treat you.
Right, right. Now, what do you call? You did TEDx, which is really a big deal. You didn't do just one; you did three.
I did, but yeah. So the first two, so one of them, I'm gonna can I tell you? So if you Google Jennifer Rawlings, like the baseball glove, but not the same family. So if you want me to come perform for you, I will definitely do that because it's not the same family. RAWLINGS. So if you Google Jennifer Rawlings TEDx, one of them is called Laughter is Beautiful, and that is the one I did in Belfast, which was amazing. And then The Courage to Forgive was one that I did in Luxembourg. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Going to Belfast was a blast because I feel so lucky because I was able to do my solo show, I Only Smoke in War Zones, in London. And Lord Alderdice, who helped to broker the Good Friday Agreement, saw my show there. And then I wound up with he and Eva Grossman going to Belfast. And it was amazing.
Wonderful. Now, tell me about Laughter is Beautiful. What was that about? What was the topic?
So Laughter is Beautiful is really about, you know, social media is, I think, a big cause of this. Because as a kid growing up in Kansas, people would have different, it was okay if people had different opinions, and, you didn't go after your neighbor because they disagreed with you. And I think that one of the things that's so easy about social media is that, you're behind your phone, you're not speaking to somebody in person. And so Laughter is Beautiful is really about, it's encouraging people to find somebody you disagree with, and instead of yelling at them, pointing out how you're right and they're wrong, you can build a bridge. You can build laughter sounds the same in every language, no matter where you are, whether you're in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kalamazoo, we all sound the same when we laugh. And so it's the universal language. And so it's really just about that we don't have to burn bridges all the time because we disagree. We can do what our parents did and what our grandparents did, and listen and and find something in common. You might not be able to sway somebody, but I guarantee you're not going to be able to sway somebody when you are telling them that they're wrong or attacking them. I see lots of people getting canceled online and stuff like that. Like, you're never going to bring anybody to your way of thinking by doing that. And I don't think it's necessarily our job to bring somebody to our way of thinking all the time. But what you can do is they're going to hear you, because when you get people to laugh, you can get them to listen.
Yes.
And that's really the shift. And so that's what that talk is about.
We have something in common, and maybe you'll never guess it, but I'll tell you. I was in.
You're also a blonde?
Originally, I was born a blonde, but hey, I was at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, and we were doing comedy for the airmen and all that. I was doing comedy, and then they told me about the Landschaft Hospital where they have the wounded warriors.
Oh, yeah.
And you know where I'm getting with that. So
Yeah.
I end up going there, and I'm praying, like, Lord, how can I make them laugh? So I walk into that room, and there's 19-year-old kid that stepped on a IED,
Mhm.
and it's just he was missing his leg. And I asked him, "Where are you from?" He goes, "Oh, I'm from Chicago." And I go, "So what are you gonna do next?" He said, "I want to go back and fight with my troop again." I said, "Well, I didn't know what to say, trying to be
Right.
funny, and you're crying inside for this young man." And I go, "Wait, you know what?" I said, "Well, that's good. At least you know who's shooting at you in Afghanistan. But when you're in Chicago, you don't know who's shooting at you. Is it the cops? Is it your ex-girlfriend? Is it the gangs?" So he started laughing hard, and it was just amazing. But you had this similar experience that's much deeper. You walked into this hospital, and there
Yeah.
was this
Oh, do you want me to share that
young.
story?
Yes, I heard that story.
Oh,
I stalk you.
did, did you want
Yeah,
me to share it or no?
yeah. I want you to share it.
Okay. All right. All right. Oh, and by the way, okay, so I was in Afghanistan, and oftentimes part of your job as a performer is you go to the hospitals, and so the other comics and I, there were 4 other comedians, we went to the hospital at Bagram Air Force Base, and the walls are white, and the linoleum floors, you can hear your feet slapping against it. And we saw several patients there. We saw people with head injuries, people with a broken leg. There was people with malaria lined up like matchsticks.
Mm.
And we go over to one of the beds. There was 3 patients that were waiting to be transported to Landstuhl Air Force Base. Todd was a 19-year-old specialist from New Jersey. His face was melted and covered in toffee-colored ooze. A tube in his nose ran full of blood. He was missing most of his lips, the tip of his nose, and his left leg. He had internal injuries as well. And I'm not really sure where to look or what to say. And as I prepare to sit down, Todd indicates with his eyes to sit down on the bed. And as I prepare to sit down, I notice a pale gray box. And inside that pale gray box is a Purple Heart given to soldiers wounded or killed in the line of duty. And as I look at that Purple Heart, I think, please God, take away that Purple Heart and give Todd back his face. As I sit down, Todd, I'm making small talk with Todd, and I lean in closer to hear him respond. And he tells me that he's going to get married in August to his high school sweetheart, Debbie. They're planning on a church wedding. And as I think about that, I think, how's Debbie going to feel the first time she goes to kiss his young lips and they're no longer there? Todd also tells me about his dad. He says, I want to speak to my dad. I really want to talk to my dad. He tells me that the nurse tried to call him that day. And as a mother, I can only imagine that conversation. Mr. Martin, this is Nurse Folklore, Bagram Air Force Base. Your son Todd has been injured.
Mm-hmm.
And right next to Todd is another soldier, 25 years old. He's missing both of his legs, and his face has also been melted from the heat of the IED. And on his standard issue white sheet is a pale gray box with a purple heart inside.
Mm.
And I just wanted to go back in time and take away that IED that has melted away their features and their futures. So going to war zones definitely changed my view of the world, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Did your kids feel that? Did your family notice
Yeah,
it?
my kids were very changed by my going to war zones, and in a positive way. I mean, I did miss Thanksgivings and some of their birthdays, but they were. I didn't realize this at the time, but they were proud that I was doing that. I mean, and once they got to be teenagers, they probably wanted me gone more, but hey.
Tell me about Carnegie Hall, Voices of You.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was on last week, and I am very proud to be part of the Carnegie Hall Voices of Hope, but I got to tell you. It really stinks that it was virtual. I mean, come on. It just doesn't feel fair.
Yeah, to be at
but
Carnegie
yeah,
Hall and receive it.
It was really, I felt very honored to be a part of it. And because not last year, obviously not in 2020, but the year before that, it was, it was that particular festival was actually a different festival, but the same organization. It was on the stage there. So I guess I'll just have to do it again next year.
Yeah. Now you did a stand-up concert called what? I Only Smoke at War. Is that a stand-up?
Oh yeah, so I have this solo show, and also to any of you guys out there, if I'm going to plug myself here, Nazareth. Okay,
please do. That's
I can't wait to get on stage again. So if you want me to come to your tractor pull or your church or your women's group or your poker game, I'm there. I can do stand up. I can give a talk. I have a solo show called I Only Smoke in War Zones, which mixes together war zone stories plus being a mother of 5. So it's both funny and serious. But it's all true stories. Crazily, all true.
Yeah, how do you balance the two in a comedy show when they're coming to see you?
So a lot of times, with the I Only Smoke in War Zones, a lot of times you have to let them know that it is a solo show, that it's not a stand-up show.
Not stand-up.
But they catch on pretty quickly, because they're laughing and then they're crying and then they're laughing again and then they're crying. And so they catch on, but you do need to let people know. But you're serious too sometimes.
I do towards the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I try not to do it in the beginning, but
yeah. So I typically kind of do it like I weave it throughout, and so then they kind of get on the pattern of it, But I think that being funny and serious, it's just like a good book or just like a movie. So, and that's what life is, isn't it? I mean. Yeah. We like all the craziness we go through, and then you're like, and then you're sobbing. So, it's true life.
I made him cry. That's good. How about you wrote a book?
I wrote a book. It's not, so my agent is shopping it right now. And so I loved Nazareth that you called it a yaw novel. But for anybody out there, it's a young adult novel.
Young adult, yeah. Yeah.
And but it actually is for anybody really, because when one of my attorneys, when she read it, I mean, she's old like me, and she loved it. But I wrote it specifically for a young adult audience because I feel like that they can really benefit from the story. But I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but I will give you a little clue. It is about war and poverty. But it takes place in for a bunch of walks of life. Like one of the women is from Kansas, one of the women's from Sarajevo, and one of the women is from LA. And so it's being shopped right now to publishers. And hey, if there's an editor out there, email me and I'll let you know who my agent is. And there you go. And then so I'm proud of that. What else do you want to know, Nazareth? I want to know about you. What's going on with you? How's your family?
My family is doing great. I'm in love with my wife, and in August 10th,
okay, you know what? I know you are in love with your wife because you have just always. I'm going to just tell everybody here about Nazareth. Yeah. So I've known Nazareth for a long time, and one of the things I really love about Nazareth is that he's just always been just such a cheerleader for everybody. And you know how, like, I'm just saying, ladies and guys, you know how like some people are kind of fake? Nazareth is not that way. He's always been like so genuine and sweet. And one of the things I remember I did a gig for you like in Orange County or something. And your beautiful wife was there. And I mean, I'm surprised you didn't like roll out a carpet for her to walk on, and that you didn't, because you clearly love her, and it's just so beautiful to watch. And just being around you is always so great because you just always have been so kind, and you're without judgment, which is really beautiful too, because I think that you really reach a lot of people that way because you are you're real.
Well, thank you. As a comedian I would listen for another 2 hours to anybody talking about me. But what's next?
I want to answer somebody like promote bad keyboard. Sorry. Okay. I don't know what promote bad keyboard means. Yes, this
promote is bad keyboard. Oh,
okay. Yeah, JenniferRawlings.com. RAWLINGS.
Oh, okay. Rawlings. Yeah, we will say we'll get all that out, and it's already written here. But my wife gave you 5 hearts right now. Maha, my wife.
Oh, I still remember her. First of all, she's like a supermodel, which is like
she is still like a supermodel.
I don't know. I mean, if you weren't so nice, I don't know what she'd be doing with you, Naz.
What are you working on? What's next for Jennifer? What's next for...
Okay, what's next? Okay, well, so I did have a busy pandemic. I finished a novel, and I wrote two screenplays I was hired to write. But what's next for me is I can't wait to get on stage. And so now it just needs to happen. Now I just need to do it. I got to get back on stage again because I really miss the people. And I'm fully vaccinated, so I can go back on stage again.
Do you write? Are you writing new material? Are you writing comedy, or you're too busy?
I am writing new material because I think the one thing that this pandemic has done for me, oops, sorry, there's like this thing coming up here, is,
you look fine. We're sounding fine. You look fine.
I had this like Java install thing come up. I don't want to go back to what I did before. I want to create the next chapter because I already did that. That's already happened. And let's do what's next, because I think that that at least that's where I see things. And so I'm ready to do what's next. And so I'm ready to get back on stage, do new material, reach new things, and really, really just blaze a new path. That's what's next.
What do you are a good writer. I mean, you wrote an article for the New York Times. You wrote. I read an article when you said Tennessee, Kansas. 10, Kansas 10, and other. It's just you're a good writer. You're humorous, but
Oh,
the
thank
way
you.
you bring it all together. What was the article for the New York Times about?
So the New York Times thing, I don't know if you've ever done this, Nazareth, but sometimes I get really down. Does that ever happen to you?
Uh, it, it does, but I know there's a lot of people who are watching and listening. Yes, tell us more about that.
So I was really down and I was really depressed. And I thought, well, I need to do something. And so I knew that the New York Times had a section called At War. And while I was sitting crying in my living room about life, I was having a big old pity party for myself. I emailed the editor at the At War section of the New York Times, and he emailed me right back. And he said, "Oh, I know who you are." And I said, "Well, I'd like to write something for you." And I wrote it. And I've written a couple things for the New York Times. I think the one you're talking about is the one that talks about performing my solo show. And it was really great because, I don't know about the men and the ladies out there, but sometimes when we're down, if we can just find the strength to lift our hand and say, "Pick me. I'm ready to serve and ready to create change in the world."
Wow.
And it's really hard to do that, but then you get these great things from it. And so while I was having a pity party, I somehow kicked myself enough to raise my hand and say, "Pick me." And that's how that came out. And then I was another one for the New York Times about Thanksgiving. And then this was kind of funny. I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I have a Google alert on my name. And the reason is because I used to write a column for Hybrid Mom. And a lot of people would republish that and not give, and I wouldn't get compensated for it. So I got this Google alert for it. And so I do have a point to this story. So after I wrote the Thanksgiving one for the New York Times, about a year later on Thanksgiving, I get a Google alert with my name on it from the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal, I do thank them for giving me credit for it, but they basically lifted an article that I wrote for the New York Times and repurposed it in the Wall Street Journal. But hey, at least I got my name on it. So
That's awesome. In
yeah.
those few minutes, two questions. The second one will be, how can people get a hold of you, book you, watch the movie again, and all that. But the last question, what do you say? How do you already encourage the people with if you're depressed, just do how can I be of serve? But what can you encourage the women listening in such a time as this? The moms, it's Mother's Day. You got 5 kids
I got 5
and
kids
a husband, and
and a
what do you, and a
mother.
mother. You're gonna go see your mom. What do you say to women out there? What is Jennifer has? If you only have
You know
one
what?
message to give?
What my one message is no matter where you are, if you can be anywhere in the world, because I mean, and what an amazing time that you can be anywhere in the world right now listening to this. No matter where you are or where you are in your life or how low or how high you are feeling, only you have a purpose in your life, and only you can fulfill that purpose. You are the only person on this planet that can do this. And I think that what is hard for women is oftentimes we think, "Oh, well, we can't do that because Diane's already doing that." I guarantee you, ladies, men don't ever do that. They never think, "Oh, I can't do that because Tony's already doing that." No. You were born with a purpose and you know what it is. And as scary as it is, and as many times as you failed or as many times as you've made mistakes, because we've all made mistakes and we've all fallen short of being the person we were created to be. Make it your mission, and you're going to fall down again, but make it your mission to every single day say, raise your hand and say, pick me. How can I be of service? And what can I do today to make this world a better place? And let me be an agent for change. And that's what I would encourage every single woman, man or woman, to do, but particularly women, because women, we are the peacekeepers of the world, and we are the lovers of the world. And you have a job to do, ladies, and I want to hear about what you're doing. And please email me, because I want to hear about the amazing things that you're doing. To raise your hand and say, pick me.
That should be the name of your next book.
Thank you.
Yes, that's powerful. That's deep. Jennifer, thank you. How can people get a hold? I mean, you are a funny comedian. You are a great writer. You did TEDx, and you're a wonderful speaker, and you're a filmmaker. Uh, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can start by going to my website, which, by the way, I know it needs to be updated. It's a mess. It's really, really pathetic. So don't really click around on the website. Just
Just
email
go to
me. Okay?
contact.
Email me at Jennifer, Jennifer, at Jennifer, Rawlings.com. So just my name, Jennifer at JenniferRawlings.com. You can follow me on Twitter. My name's too long to have it that way. So it's Jenn and then LU Rawlings. But if you put in my name, you'll find me. There you go. I think I said it. Jennifer at JenniferRawlings.com.
You got it.
Well, and I want to hear about your journey. All you ladies out there, Anna, Teresa, Sarah, I can't even read. I need my glasses, but I want to hear about everybody.
You
And
got
sending
it.
you all lots of love.
And we have a show every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time called Live with Naz. And a lot of my fans and friends are there. And we laugh for an hour, and we lift each other in prayer, and we, encourage people. So if you're bored, go to Comedian Nazareth on Facebook or YouTube and join the conversation with us. We love you guys. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for
Yes, thanks
really
for having me. I would do anything that you're involved with, because you're just an amazing, amazing guy, and I just adore you, and you're hilarious, and you're wonderful. Thank you, Naz.
and
I appreciate it.
hopefully we'll work together. It's 2021 or 2022. That's the background music. Thank you guys so much. And
My
that's
English
our
is
show.
calling you. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, people. We'll see you tonight at 8:30 p.m. And God bless you. Thank